Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. This is probably going to be one of my craziest trip reports. Maybe one of the hardest to describe, but certainly one of my favorite trips of all time, and definitely my favorite combo of any two drugs, and that's the combination of LSD and magic mushrooms. I guess technically weed as well, but yeah, the primary two psychedelics are the acid and the mushrooms, and they synergize wonderfully. So they also take you the fuck away from this world and make you experience some pretty crazy stuff. So it's going to be hard to describe, and a lot of the meaning as well that came from this trip, or a lot of the information that I was told. It might be a bit heavy to do all of it here, so I might make a separate video, but I'll see how much I can do. So this happened a long time ago, probably around the time I did DMT and my breakthrough DMT experience, and it was coming just off of that. So I had the house to myself, and I had a little bit of LSD with me, some magic mushrooms, and I decided I'd do half a tab of acid and just a small amount of shrooms, probably a gram or two, and then I decided to take them at the same time. This wasn't the first time doing this. I did this in the very early days of doing psychedelics, but because this was just coming off my DMT experience and the time I also did 3 tabs of acid, I evolved a lot in my understanding of the psychedelic realms, and like I had my mind altered a lot by psychedelics. So this time I was able to go a lot further than I was the first times. So anyway, I take the 2 psychedelics and I'm waiting for a while, and about 2 hours in, it starts to kick in. I'm sitting in my TV room and I look down at the couch and I decide to do this like open-eyed meditation technique, which is just to stare at a single point and just focus on one single point for a while. So I decide to do this with an area on the carpet, and as I'm doing this, I literally begin to see the carpet swirling. And it's strange because it's not just like swirling around the single point, it's the entire carpet seems to like lift off the ground and begin to move back and forth in like this circular motion. So I'm just sitting there, I'm thinking, yeah, this is coming on pretty hard, harder definitely than the first times I did this. This is gonna be an interesting trip. But I decide, and I'm full of love, like no fear or anything like that. I actually lay down on the carpet and give it a big hug. I'm like, this is just wonderful. And that's the thing with acid and mushrooms, is they really do synergize well together. There's no sense of like this breaking in the mind. It's not like this is really uncomfortable and I've combined 2 things that shouldn't be combined. It's like I've taken a single psychedelic compound. So it's a really cool combo. But anyway, I decide that I'm going to go into the kitchen, and I do the same technique. I walk into the kitchen and I start staring at the tiles. It's really not a whole bunch I can do because it's too strong for me to watch TV, but not strong enough yet for me to meditate. So I'm just kind of doing this like very casual open-eye meditation stuff. I start staring at the tiles, and this is when it starts to get really cool. My tiles have a very complicated pattern on them, and my inner voice starts getting influenced by the psychedelics and basically starts saying, the reason why we surround ourselves in these very complicated patterns is it's to replicate the complicated geometric patterns that were around us when we were monkeys, like the leaves in the trees and the clouds in the sky, these very complicated patterns. Well, they're actually not just random patterns. They have an effect. There's like this geometric pattern beneath all of these complex images, and it's affecting our psyche. At least this is what my mind is saying. I'm going to be saying a lot of crazy stuff. This is not even remotely close to the crazy shit that's going to come later. I don't know if any of it is real whatsoever, but it's just what I experienced. It's just what it felt like was real when I was on the trip. So I'm just going to explain what was real in the trip. Whether or not it was real is so beyond me, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so as I'm hearing this, the tiles begin to like almost play this game of connect the dots, and I see these like very cool patterns appearing on the surface of my tiles. And once they do, they then lift off the ground and they begin to do the same thing that the carpet did, circulate and move around like these 3D images or these 3D geometric patterns. And I've heard of similar things happening to people in acid before. It never happened to me, so I'm thinking this is now getting really cool. I think it's time for me to smoke some weed and start meditating and start taking this trip seriously. So anyway, I go downstairs, grab my bong, smoke some weed, and mind you, I'm not smoking a lot of weed at this point, so it really fucking hits me. And I go upstairs and go onto the roof of my house, and I begin to do open-eyed meditation. At first, I lay down on the roof and I start staring up at the stars. And this is where it's going to get a little bit crazy, but easily my favorite part of the trip. And this is pretty cool. So I'm laying down, I'm staring at the stars and just kind of emptying my mind, as you do for meditation. And then I start perceiving the stars differently than normal. I start seeing these stars as entities, like things with a separate consciousness to my own. And I do this because I feel like they are having a conversation with me intuitively, or communicating with me, but I'm receiving their language intuitively. I'm not hearing it as an inner voice, it's something deeper than that. They then begin to explain that us seeing them with our senses is not just seeing this random light. It's not just this pretty thing in the sky that's useless other than the fact that it makes the sky pretty. What we're seeing is the stars' communication with the earth. They are basically speaking with electromagnetic radiation, or their light. Just like we depend on the sun's electromagnetic radiation to exist, and therefore it's like our consciousness isn't just like the earth's consciousness, it's as much of the sun's as it is the earth. Just in the same way that we have a relationship with this sun, we actually have a relationship with the stars as well. And all of the stars are communicating with this light, which we are then receiving, and it's actually embedding itself into our consciousness. And then they take it a step further, and then they begin to say that they're basically that it's hard for me to remember, it really is, but I think what they started saying was then that we have these contradicting thoughts and notions, and this is actually the different energies of these clusters of stars entering us and becoming a hybrid consciousness. And then amongst this hybrid is all these different star personalities which are kind of fighting for power. And so we have all these different thoughts which conflict with each other, and it's up to us to choose which thoughts to align with. These thoughts are possibly the effect of these energies being spewed out by these stars, which are then breeding with our own consciousness and our intelligence. Apparently it's something like that. I don't want to go ahead and say that's what's going on, but basically these stars are sharing their intelligence through their light with us, and they are breeding, so to speak, with the earth. And the result is our consciousness. But anyway, as they're explaining this, the stars begin to... certain clusters of stars begin to merge. Not like the stars come together. They are moving about in my vision, but it's like an imaginary line is drawn between certain stars. And all of a sudden I can see these very bizarre looking alien figures. But I can't actually see a line between them. Again, it's like this intuitive vision. It's really hard to explain. But once I see this, the information they start sharing with me gets far more powerful, and they begin to explain to me how I'm not just this person, how I'm connected to everything. And truth be told, I can't really remember much of what they're telling me at this point, so I'm not going to put it in this video. But I can imagine, what they'd be saying as to explain how we are all one. But as they do, I start drifting away from my sense of self, and they give me an ego death experience. basically I'm in that state for a while. I can't remember what was going on then, but finally I come back to my body and I sit upright. I'm kind of just like, whew, that was kind of crazy. But I continue with the meditation anyway, and I stare forward at this single point. And I'm also listening to Full Circle by Space Buddha at this point. And I think the song Land of the Wolves comes on. It's such a dope psytrance track, and so it really puts me in the zone. I'm just staring forward, and all of a sudden I'm hit with this flash of white light. And inside this white light I see these faces, these smiling people just looking at me. And they're actually the same entities that I met on DMT, what I refer to as the machine elves. They're also the same ones I met when I did 3 tabs of acid, and really entities that I've met quite a few times now. When I saw these entities, I realized immediately that I've seen them many times, but before this LSD and magic mushroom trip, I'd actually always forgotten meeting them. But while I'm there, I see them and I'm like, oh wow, it's you guys again, but I'm not going to forget seeing you guys this time. That's what I tell myself. And it's really weird the way they entered my vision. If the only way I can explain the way it felt was if you imagine that we are one stream of space-time, like if we were just a single stream of space-time, it seemed like they entered perpendicularly to the stream, and like they exist in this realm that's outside of our own space-time reality, and they can pick where they want to enter. So yeah, that's what it felt like. It was really strange meeting these guys. But anyway, as soon as they come in, they ask me, look, is it alright if we possess you? Which, obviously sounds a bit crazy, but I remembered meeting these entities before, and immediately I trust them. I'm like, I know these guys, they've always done really nice things for me, always said good things. And I know many of you watching probably thinking that these are like demonic entities who are fooling me and whatever. They're not. They're good. They've only ever shared really nice information with me, like the same sort of shit that motivational people say. Love yourself, believe in yourself. That's that kind of shit. That's the sort of shit they've always explained to me. So I have no reason to believe they're demonic entities. Anyway, they say, is it okay if we possess you? And I say, yes, help yourself, go for it. For some reason. And as soon as I say this, I feel as if there's a presence in the back of my mind tinkering and playing around. It's a very weird sensation. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And then I hear my own thought, and it says to me, did you know that the third dimension is held together by focus? If you lose focus, you'll leave the third dimension. And it was something crazy like that. And at this point, I'm staring at a single point. Somehow that just makes total sense, and I lose focus. It's as if I look in between my vision. That's the only way I can explain it. And as I do so, everything goes fuzzy, or not fuzzy, it becomes like holographic almost. And then I see the houses that are surrounding me, because I'm on the roof, so I'm looking at my neighborhood, and I see all of these houses. They're just turning into shapes now, and they begin to move and lift off the ground, and they're just like circling the middle of my vision, and then they all begin to enter it. And there's like a little black hole where I'm staring, and it's as if all these houses enter the black hole and then are spewed out as like transparent spirals. And it's like this constant, like these buildings are entering this black hole and being spewed out as different shapes and really crazy stuff. Unfortunately, that's the point that I kind of like not blacked out, but I can't remember what else was going on there. They also said something else to me. Now this is really vague in my mind, and I don't understand it really well. So, I unfortunately I can't explain it more. I just have to take them at their word. But what they said to me is that when we die, they are basically our ancestors and our future selves, and they you can't really say they belong to the past or the future because they exist in a timeless realm. But they said when I die, I would basically become one of them, and I'd travel back to all the moments in my life where I've been self-aware, or at least that is accessible in my memory. And in fact, what makes me self-aware is the fact that these guys are traveling back along with me from the moment that I've died to then look at myself. Sounds a bit strange, probably, because I've got no idea what the fuck it means. But that's what they were saying. Basically, they're explaining that we are eternal. You have nothing to fear. You'll go in this very insane process of die, relive your life, and then I think maybe you start over again and you do things better. Things you just... I don't know, because I do also believe that you might, I just don't know. I don't know, but they're basically it's like that, and it's beautiful. When I'm listening, it's like, no, there's no way you should fear death. There's no reason you should fear death. If you live your life in regret, don't worry, you get another chance, and you'll get another chance over and over and over again, probably until you're fulfilled and content. Maybe, who knows. Anyway, so after I've gone through this strange headspace of seeing a black hole and learning that my self-awareness has something to do with me when I'm dead, basically I come to and I'm actually already off of the roof and I'm walking into my room. And I had no recollection of getting off of my roof and walking. I just kind of came to when I was entering my room. I was like, oh, well, that's very strange. I think this is probably coming on quite heavy. I might go upstairs and chill in front of my gas heater, because that's where I always went when my trips would just get a little bit heavier than I was ready for. So I went up and chilled in front of the fire and just going through some of the thoughts and some of the things I've been thinking. Then I remembered back to my DMT trip, and when I did so, I remembered when I entered my mind, basically after taking the second toke of DMT and closed my eyes and saw these entities come up. I don't know if they're the same entities. They definitely look different in both trips, but I think they said similar things, so I have reason to believe they're the same entities. But I'm thinking back to what they had told me, and as I do, it's like all of a sudden I'm possessed by those entities, and like I'm saying exactly what they were saying, and I'm like drooling almost. I'm just like totally losing control of my body, and they repeat what they said to me on the DMT. This may sound a little bit scary. It doesn't feel negative. I wasn't scared of it at all. But I don't know exactly what they mean by this. But anyway, what was said was, they were like, I start saying on the acid and mushrooms, basically possessed by this thing, we control everything. We are you, we are your neighbors, we are your perception, we are everything. We control everything. And then they just kind of left. And as soon as they left, I could feel my fingers as if there was electricity being emitted from the fingertips. And I have this old Hebrew tapestry right next to the gas heater with a picture of these horses carrying a chariot. And I'm literally seeing the legs on the horses galloping, thinking to myself, this is just fucking phenomenal, like when I'm on psych, sometimes you see things moving about like letters or whatever jumbling around, but actually seeing everything else still, but just the horse's feet galloping. I never experienced any visuals like that before. But yeah, so the possession was really, really strange. And I was left kind of like twinkling my fingers, like, what the fuck was that? What just happened? But yeah, that was the last thing I really remember, the last prominent thing I remember. Funnily enough, it wasn't hard getting to sleep. I was tripping my nuts off. I went downstairs and I smoked a little bit more weed, but when I decided that I wasn't going to get anything else out of this trip, because I did plan on listening to the whole album of Full Circle by Space Buddha, but I had the TV on and Malcolm in the Middle was on, and I just found it so funny, and like I was like, meditation's cool and all, but I'm having fun here, so I might as well stay here. And I just watched the rest of Malcolm in the Middle, and it was like the best episode ever. But yeah, anyway, so I came downstairs after that, and I just fell asleep pretty easily. So altogether, it was a really wonderful trip. I've never had a bad experience on combining acid and mushrooms and smoking weed. It's probably my favorite combo of psychedelics. So yeah, I haven't done too many other combos. I'll probably talk about some of them. One of them was frightening at one point, but not a bad trip either. So yeah, that's the experience. As I said, I don't really want to talk about what I learned so much in this video. I think I'll make a separate video talking about it, because it is hard to explain, like the fact that we are eternal. There's also a relationship between these entities and us being dead and our ancestors, as well as the intelligence of the stars and the stars guiding our own lives. There's a relationship there, which I think I'll explore in a future video. But for now, I'll leave it with this. Have no fear of death. That's one thing that I've shown of this. There's no reason to fear death. Have no fear of living the life you want to. Don't make the choices that you feel are comfortable and safer than the things you really want to do, because they will cause regret. And you'll learn far more from taking risks than you will from being safer. So when you start over again, that second time of living your life again, that third or the billionth and trillionth and millionth, gazillionth time of redoing your life again, you'll have more information to make the right choices. So take the risks. Live the life you want to live. That's what I learned from this trip. Anyway, guys, I'll leave it there. Love you heaps. Hope you guys are having a great day. Make it a great day if you're not. Peace. Talk to you soon.